our big review.
Yep, a big review of Brilliant Diamond and Shining Pearl. And these are games that are kind of notorious on the podcast just because we sort of like speculated on their potential existence before they were even announced, right? This was something that I kind of, and a lot of Pokemon fans kind of saw coming, like, well in advance, right? So to see it realized and then just to see the games lead up and release and everything, it's just been a pretty magical experience overall.
It has been the time, quite a time, dude. I mean, I just, to the point where I was telling my girl, this is the most wholesome feeling I've gotten out of a Switch release.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe that I can think of. I mean, it's probably a lot to do with the DS. This being
Absolutely.
a remake, the hype we have for Gen 4. But really, this type of excitement, and this type of experience to look forward to and then experience. I mean,
it's kind of something we haven't really felt since the games were coming out when we were kids. Like the Gens 1 through 4 were these games that we kind of felt this way about. And obviously, as we grew into adults, the game series changed a little bit. Obviously, we still love it. But this brings us right back there to that early childhood feeling.
In every way possible. I mean, we're going to go through the separate categories that make this game so great.
Mm-hmm.
But just off top, I'm not even going to sit here and rate on a number scale or star scale. This game is a 10 out of 10 potential favorite Switch game.
Yeah, I agree.
I mean, bottom line, dude, I don't know what, we're kicking it off with the conclusion, but there's just so much more to it.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's actually good to get that out of the way early because there's a lot of people that have, and I've insulated myself from some of this. I know you've insulated yourself pretty much completely, but there's a lot of negativity around the games in terms of glitches or exploits or just like that kind of thing. But we honestly, you and we've not really been interested in that kind of thing for a long time in terms of actual gameplay. So those things are things that we're not well versed in and we're not going to be discussing in this review today.
Not at all, because you mentioned it before. When you come across these things, a lot of times you're looking for them almost.
Correct.
I mean, the bugs that I experienced in this game were very minimal.
Really? Yeah, I don't think I saw anything. I don't think I came across anything that seemed out of place to me.
I wanted to send you. I got it videoed. I took the screenshot video, but there was a point where I walked into a Pokeball, like an item, and then was kind of stuck there for a moment, and then I walked out of it and then interacted, and it picked up the item. I think it was the Galactic Key outside of the warehouse.
I mean, that's a weird item, so that's not that strange to me.
Yeah,
that's not something
that item spawns. That is one thing I have to say. That is an item that spawns. So
that's what I'm saying. Yeah.
Perhaps I was standing on the tile that it spawned on or something like that,
And that's something that we've seen before. I believe in Gen 1, when the guy drops the lift key in Silphco, it kind of is the same way. If you're standing on that exact tile, he's going to drop it on you.
Yeah.
Kind of same deal how if you save inside of where a cut tree is, you kind of, and then, restart your game, the cut tree is obviously going to be there and you're going to be standing on top of it. So I equate it more to something like that, which I wouldn't even call a bug, more than just like a quirk,
Definitely. And just the fact that I have one thing like that through my whole playthrough of the game, because, ladies and gentlemen, your boy Sterling is Hall of Fame status. I just wanted to say I lived up to what I said. And this morning, I took Cynthia down. I am in the Hall of Fame champion.
I couldn't be more proud of you either. I am not there. I am in the 8th gym currently. I believe I'm very close to just fighting the 8th gym leader. But it won't. I mean, one more good play session and I'll be at the Elite Four easily, and then
No,
we'll go from there.
Yep, I can definitely say a Tyler sit down is definitely what you're away from being there.
Yeah, for sure. So pretty excited about that, definitely.
Yeah, man. And I'm just excited to be surrounded by people playing the game. I know your fiance is playing, mine as well. She is, I think, around the second or third gym. She's got to get her Animal Crossing in.
Of course.
So, but she's looking to dive deep into Brilliant Diamond. And I just love being surrounded by people playing the game.
Yeah, it really brings back that elementary school feeling where that was all there was.
Yep, and it's not a sad thing. Usually with games, Tyler, you don't want it to end. You don't want to get to what's considered the end.
The end of the main story.
Yeah, but, I was kind of telling my girl this morning, if you think I'm done with this game, you're sorely mistaken.
Yeah, that's only the beginning.
It's only you took the words right out of my mouth. This is only the beginning. This is just the mandatory achievement.
The 25-hour tutorial.
Yeah. Now it's time to get into the serious shit, the shit that we love the most.
Yeah. I'm excited to see some of the post-game content. I haven't really looked into too much of it, but what I do know about it has got me very, very excited.
Definitely, man. I can't wait to go to Romanus Park and see what's up with that.
Yep.
I also want to get on with doing dailies with the Safari Zone, and I'm calling it the Safari Zone because that's exactly what it is, man.
Is it not even? I guess it's not called that in the game, but that's really it's the Great Marsh. That's right. It's the Safari Zone. It's the same thing.
It's the Safari Zone, man. But I got to tell you, they did such a fantastic job, as they did in the DS games. But here as well, they did such a fantastic job of giving you that, I'm talking red, blue, yellow Safari Zone experience.
It's pretty much 1-to-1 with just some minor quality of life. Like, even insofar as you
tram, the tram makes it interesting because in the regular Safari Zone, man, you're trucking it through on foot, man.
Yep.
And if you run out of steps, you're out.
Yep. I like that, though, because other than that, I mean, even as far as you have to go into it to get a needed story item or move from inside, just like in Gen 1.
Yep.
And I think that's fun.
Wasn't that the false teeth?
Yeah. Well, it was the false teeth for strength and the surf HM.
Yep,
so really two.
Yep.
Like,
yeah, two.
You get two
That's incredible,
HMs
man.
to progress the game in one place. And in this one, I can't remember exactly what it was, but I believe it was a field move TM as well. If it wasn't rock climb, it wasn't rock climb, but it was maybe defog. I think that might be what it was.
Maybe so.
Yeah. But looking forward to getting to the end of the game. Pretty interested to see, and we're getting into some specifics on, we're kind of talking broad terms, but I want to get into some of the specifics. You had a few topics in mind, but I want to ask you about the first thing that I had in mind before we get into any of that.
Please do.
How do you find the difficulty and sort of like, now that you've played through the whole game, like a lot of people, including us, some of the negative things we've had to say about, for instance, Sword and Shield was that it was very easy. There was a lot of mechanics that made the game easier. And it didn't feel like there was any stakes to any of it. So I want to get your thoughts on, do you feel like that's still the case here? Or do you feel like they've sort of either removed some of those more hand-holdy aspects, or just if the general difficulty of the game is more tuned to people like us?
I'm so glad that you asked me this question, Tyler, because that type of question is the life's blood of a discussion that we do.
Yeah.
And I'm completely prepared to answer all of it. So one thing that came to mind is that the difficulty, I would say, on Brilliant Diamond Shining Pearl I'm not saying that it's an impossible game or that for you and I, it's a struggle. It's not, it's not going to be a struggle for us. We're seasoned vets at this point.
Of course.
We know what we're doing and
Yeah.
but let me just say this. It makes the difficulty in something like Sword or Shield just a tad bit insulting to a full-grown adult. I'm not shitting on Sword and Shield. I love Shield. I really do. But the difficulty, and like you said, the stakes, we're talking
it just feels different.
Two different dimensions.
Yeah. I agree.
I truly realized that getting into like Victory Road.
Mm-hmm.
That's when I started to feel like, man, kids will hop on here and have a great time, but they're definitely going to have to know their shit towards the end of the game to get through it with ease.
Yeah.
Now, maybe not so much Victory Road, but let me tell you, when you get into the Elite Four and specifically Cynthia and her that Garchomp that's got me, I've got a grudge against that Garchomp for sure. Mm-hmm. That's when you start to realize, that's what I was telling my girl when I was fighting the Elite Four. I said, this is not suitable for children right now, which is so funny because Pokemon is like marketed to kids, but that got me thinking, this is pretty marketed to you and I.
No question.
I mean, preteens that were like on the DS playing these games, man.
Definitely. I mean, this doesn't feel like
they know that.
If you put this alongside something like Let's Go, for instance,
no comparison.
It's going to be no comparison in terms of difficulty and just general mechanical knowledge required, right?
Yeah, because the thing about Brilliant Diamond and Shining Pearl is there is no hand holding.
Correct.
There's quality of life.
The only things that I would consider have been made significantly easier since the DS versions, off the top of my head, the fact that you get basically an EXP share across your Pokemon all the time.
I agree.
And that's something we've seen, pretty much since Gen 6, I believe. I don't think they had anything like that in Gen 5, but in Gen 6, we saw the introduction of the EXP share that works for every Pokemon. You could turn it off and on then. You can't now, but maybe if this had come out years ago, I would have complained about something like this. But now, as an adult with a job and a fiance and a lot to do, it makes the game less grindy, which I think is appreciated.
But I gotta say, man, I agree with you. We all were there actually leveling every Pokemon in our party, specifically. Yep. I mean, we were there.
And if you're not swap training it or using the EXP share on one thing, you're not leveling.
That's where we come from, and we'll always recognize it. But one thing I have to say, while we're on the difficulty, because it's a perfect, segment for it, I think that they leveled out the difficulty, especially getting into the Elite Four, to where you really would have had to spend some time grinding.
No question.
Or catching some late game, higher level Pokemon, still
grinding them. Yeah.
And then throwing some moves on them, dropping some money on some TMs. But I think that they leveled out the difficulty to where the, experience share is much appreciated getting into the Elite Four.
Yeah. I haven't found myself having to grind at any point.
I'm the type that makes sure I have to fight like every trainer that's on a route.
Yeah.
So that's not an issue. Like, I don't go out of my way to train in the grass. I mean, when you don't have an experience share, you're training in the grass, my brothers and sisters. That's what it is.
Yep. You think about stuff like Gen 1, Gen 2. That's all you can do.
Absolutely. And with this, though, I feel like as long as you fight every trainer that's around, your team is naturally going to be exactly where it needs to be.
Yeah, I think so, too.
I didn't have to do any excess grinding. Now, of course, another thing they added, when you catch a Pokemon, you get hella experience from it. Whole team.
Yeah, I don't see an issue with that either. It's sort of just like a logical progression, right? I think that makes perfect sense.
Yeah, if anything, it's all for the Garchomp. Y'all will see if y'all haven't gotten to it.
Yeah.
But
But that's pretty much it. I pretty much share the same opinions with you. You told me right before we started recording you did the entire Elite Four without saving, which I think is pretty awesome.
well, I just want to be upfront because I don't like being a phony.
Sure.
I went through it twice and lost to the Garchomp
Yep.
without saving.
Yep.
So finally, I just sat down. Now, I originally went in and said, you know what? I want to do it like we used to do it. I'm not throwing TMs on anything. I'm going to check. I'm going to check my held items, and I'm just going to go in as I've been going. And I know that might sound ridiculous. Obviously,
No, it doesn't sound ridiculous.
We're strategists, but I just feel like when I played the older games, I never did anything like that. I went straight into the Elite Four and I did it. So I just wanted to see where I was at. Now, obviously, I got to the Garchomp. I'm talking to the last Pokemon of the champion 2 times, lost twice. So I said, you know what I'm going to do? I'm throwing TMs on my shit. I'm getting my movesets together. 3rd attempt, did it, brother.
Hey.
All I had to do was, all I had to do was put in the legwork that we obviously put in anyway these days.
Correct.
I feel like I was just handicapping myself just for the good old days.
Definitely. And that's exactly what I was going to get into on my playthrough. I've been playing on set mode. So, I love these little challenges, adding a little difficulty to my Pokemon gameplay where I can. And this is not something I've ever done on a blind playthrough of a game before. Really only when I was trying to do Nuzlocks or things with specific difficulty. But for this one, I was like, this feels like the perfect time to just throw on set mode right at the beginning. If I hate it, I can change it in the menu anytime. But I actually found that it made for some interesting gameplay because I didn't always have the optimal Pokemon out every time. I would either have to try and, figure out a good strategy with who I had out or switch and take a hit. And that makes the gameplay pretty interesting. And I fully intend to keep it that way for the Elite Four. If I really brick wall, I may turn it off. I would probably send a few attempts before I actually got to that point. But yeah, I'm pretty excited to see that sort of element of difficulty added. And I really, if you have a lot of experience playing Pokemon and you want to give yourself just a little additional challenge without changing the gameplay up too much, I recommend trying out set mode, see how you like it. For any listeners, I think that you may be surprised because not only does it add just a teeny extra percentage point of difficulty, but it makes the game a little faster, right? That's 2 or 3 text boxes. You don't have to see every single Pokemon, which is really smooth and nice. But
I didn't even know about set mode until you told me about it this morning. I feel kind of dumb, but
no, it's not something that you would ever really think about. I only know it because of it's a common thing to do in say a hardcore Nuzlocke, and stuff like that, which I've done a little bit of in the past. So that was really it. I just wanted to give myself that extra little motivation and that little satisfaction if I could do the whole blind playthrough, right? Air quotes, because it's a remake of a game that I'm familiar with. But yes, up until the 8th gym, it hasn't given me any issues. The only thing it does do, I feel like, is it gives me more EXP because I end up swapping in battles, which, you get about double the EXP if your Pokemon participates, even with the EXP share effect.
Yeah.
So that's pretty sweet. But yeah,
it highlights something important, though. It's funny that you and I share the same fandom for Pokemon, but we play the games differently until the end, until we get to the competitive reality of the end game. Then we're thinking on the same wavelength. But you and I, we play the games differently. I know you're real big on your move sets and your TMs going through the game. This might sound controversial, but when I go through the game, I really don't use the TMs that much. I like to hold on to them, and I really just go through the game with levels that are moves that are learned.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
And
I'm the complete opposite.
I'm a big traditionalist in that manner. So
I am optimizing my moveset at any given time, to the point where as soon as I got to Pastoria City, I hit the Grand Underground and grinded out as many heart scales as I needed to hit up the move relearner for everything that I felt I needed, which was probably about 3 or 4 moves on my team.
when you told me you were grinding heart scales, I already knew what the deal was.
So,
but
you
yeah,
know,
man,
nothing too crazy, but there's a few moves that if you have a fully evolved Pokemon, that move relearner is going to be clutch, giving you a move that is very special.
Yes.
Something like, I mean, I think just right off the top, and one thing I do want to get into with you is talking about our actual teams of 6, because I think that could be an interesting thing.
I didn't know if you wanted to go there, dude, but hey, if you want to go there, we can.
I do. So real quick, for the move relearner, I have a Roserade. I wanted to get Toxic on that, and I wanted to get Leech Seed because I caught a Badoo in the early game. It evolved very slowly because I didn't get the right stone and everything. So the move relearner had to be used there for me to get those 2 moves because they're Toxic and Leech Seed are basically like, I don't leave home without them. If I'm playing a Pokemon save file and I can have access to either or both of those moves, I will, at least for one party member. And you've
been a toxic boy for a long time, man.
Definitely. And then for my Electivire, I had to get Wild Charge because that's like the key move for that Pokemon. It's basically like an electric type double edge. And that had to be done. And it's because Electivire has such a high attack stat, it's like a instant, knockout on anything that's neutral or super effective. So that's basically it. My team's full of glass cannons. I would love to get into your team of 6, Sterling. I'll share the rest of mine, and then we can go into graphics, music, and some of the other sort of ideas we have.
Yeah. So much. It really speaks to this game, man, and just how big of a deal it is that we have so much to talk about because we really are just scratching the surface right now.
Absolutely.
But I'm glad you wanted to go into the teams. I really, I didn't think you'd want to dive that deep, but hey, let's do it.
I do. Do you have yours handy? You did send me a text earlier with your Hall of Fame, so I assume you could reference that if needed.
Yes. Now, this is definitely not to say this is my end game competitive team. You know how that goes. That usually is a
story team and competitive
transformation.
Team. Yeah, story team and competitive team, 2 totally different things.
Yeah, like you should see the difference between my story team and my competitive team on Shield.
One thing I do want to do before you get into yours is I do think it will be fun after I beat the Elite Four. We just mash our story teams against each other. See if we can get the levels close. I don't know if they have a feature where it'll set it to level 50 automatically. I assume so.
I think so. I think when we do the Union Room battle situation, it'll give us an option, I'm sure.
Yep. So that seems like something fun to me. Just no prep. Just send it and see what's up.
Now keep in mind I didn't use a single TM until I got to the Elite Four.
Maybe you should use some TMs first and then we'll do this.
Probably yes.
But yeah, man.
What was the remainder of your team? I want you to finish it off.
So I mentioned Electivire and Roserade. Also, I have Blissey. I have Crobat, I have Alakazam, and I have Infernape.
Okay, so half of our team is the same.
That's amazing.
And
I didn't even realize that.
We didn't talk about our teams.
Right.
Let that be known. But my team consists of Infernape, Luxray, Blissey, Mismagius, Alakazam, and Gastrodon.
So really pretty similar in terms of what we're trying to do. Obviously, even beyond the fact that we have 3 of the same Pokemon.
I think it speaks to our brains
Yeah.
A lot of times in these games, we get what's given to us. Early game, hard hitters. The Shinx, that was a big move for me. I wasn't sure if I was going to hold on to it, but once I started to use that Luxray in like doubles battles and realized what was up, the Luxray stayed.
No question. I actually had Luxray on my team too until I got Electivire. That was the only thing that would make me trade it out.
Now let me ask you: Did you hatch the Happiny and
Yep.
that was your Blissey?
Yep.
Yep, same here.
I got really lucky with natures too. For most of my Pokemon, I either got something that was neutral or at least reasonable for, the type of Pokemon that they are.
Yeah, totally. And unfortunately, sometimes we wind up having to swap out even if you use the same Pokemon, swap it out completely because IVs are IVs and whatnot,
Yep.
But it is the luck of the draw. So it's good to get good natures, good abilities, shit like that,
Yep.
What I was really hype on, to be honest with you, dude, it's so random, but throwing a Misdreavus on my team, that was something that I don't usually do, but I always come to a point in every Pokemon game where I say, who's going to be my ghost? Now, that's a big question.
Yep.
We have a lot of great options, but then I came across a Misdreavus, and I said, you know what? I think I'm going to take a Mismagius to the finish line.
Yep. I'm a frequent user of Gengar, so I'm well familiar with that.
Oh, yeah, and Gengar is a strong second pick. I've done that more times than I can count. But the Mismagius was a workhorse. It's a glass cannon, of course.
Yep. No different than Gengar or Alakazam.
Nope. But the speed is there, the power's there, the versatility and moveset's there.
Yeah.
Just you know what I'm talking about. That rockin' psychic, dark, fairy, ghost. I mean, that's a really strong.
That's a beautiful coverage.
It's beautiful, absolutely. So that was a really hype one for me, man. I told you the lowest Pokemon on my team in the Elite Four was Gastrodon going in, level 55, rolling in.
Yep.
And Gastrodon was such a workhorse. I just wanted to shout out Gastrodon. Even with the level gap, this thing was doing the most. And I was just, and I did a little tweaking to its moveset, and it's got a lot of versatility being, what is it? I believe water and ground.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, water and ground type. So, you're in a pretty good situation aside from grass, maybe.
Yep. And that's easily played around.
And I'm not trying to spoil anything, but grass is definitely not very present in the Elite Four.
Right.
As far as movesets.
Mm-hmm.
So Gastrodon was a big pick. I'm really happy with the team, man. I'm really looking forward to getting into the competitive side of the game. Dex grinding,
Definitely.
We talked about that. You and I have opposite versions, as it should be. So we get the premium experience. Anything else you wanted to cover regarding your team, man? Any that pop out as like a hype addition, one that really made you feel something throughout your playthrough?
Well, I don't know if I've talked about this on the podcast at length, but Electabuzz is my historical favorite Pokemon.
Always. And I'm really happy to own that Elekid that you sent me.
Yeah. But I've never really done like a full game story run with like an Electabuzz or anything like that. So any of the Electabuzz family. Not really. Because often it's not available until very late in the game. So
this is true.
The fact, pretty much as soon as I was able to go catch an Elekid and, do all that, I did. And luckily I caught two. The first one didn't have the item, the Electrizer. Second one did. The second one had the better nature and everything. So, I was able to send you one just for your decks and everything, and then end up with, what I needed for my team and what it was going to give me that dopamine to have Electivire on my team. But couldn't be happier. And we'll get into this in one of the next sort of points of discussion, but just having Electivire and or Electabuzz and just any Pokemon that you love walking behind you in a game just feels incredible.
No question. By the way, shout out to Dynamo. Tyler nicknames his Pokemon. I don't.
Yeah, I always nickname anything that I know is likely or possible to get used by me is going to get nicknamed. Anything that is just a Dex addition or just going in the box, that is always going to be usually not nicknamed. That's the difference. But anyway, Sterling.
Yeah, my girl nicknames her Pokemon. And I like it. I like seeing what people come up with for nicknames.
Yeah, and I didn't start doing that until later in life, but the nickname thing is
when it comes to the
awesome.
game, I like keeping the name of the Pokemon intact.
Yeah. But Sterling, we had a few more. Sorry, you go.
No, I was harping on the nickname thing, man. I've always kept the names, but I like seeing what people nickname their Pokemon. You know, like my girl started off with Turtwig, nicknamed it Twiggy. I'm like, I love that. I thought about Twiggy Ramirez from Marilyn Manson.
Yep.
And I like seeing what people nickname their Pokemon. It's funny that I'm so hype on that, but I don't nickname them myself. But it's just something I've never really done.
Yeah, I don't think there's anything wrong with that. It's all preferential.
Yeah, but did you want to get into maybe graphics?
Yeah, let's do it, bro.
There's a lot to say about the graphics on this game, Tyler.
The first thing I just want to say right off the bat, the game looks, one, incredible, but two, so similar to the DS game, it is actually mind-blowing. Like, the fact that they developed a game that is a modern Switch game and looks like a modern Switch game, but still keeps the exact same art style from an original DS game is pretty impressive to me.
Absolutely, dude. It's crazy because I showed my girl the comparison between the DS titles and this. I had to show her. Because she didn't play them,
of course,
and we talked about that quasi 3D. Everything is, it looks like Fire Red, Leaf Green, Ruby, Sapphire, Emerald, but then the structures, the buildings, Poke Center, the windmills, at the Windworks, all of that was 3D, and that was just so mind blowing and just so next level. And it's crazy that now that the game is fully 3D. It still maintains that pop. The buildings still pop,
It does. It still hits in the same way.
I just couldn't be a bigger fan of this visual style.
Definitely.
The chibi route is the way to go. If they just kept remaking old Pokemon in this just put Ilka on the job. They did a fantastic job on this.
I agree. The game design is absolutely incredible.
But graphically, there's so many ways that they show improvement over even Sword and Shield. I really do feel like, even like we talked about it and you wanted to bring it up, how they still do the still shots.
Yeah.
Before we get into the 3D animation.
It almost looks strange the first time you see it because it almost kind of looks like the trainer is T-posing as it comes across the screen. But then you realize what they're actually going for. And it's that Game Boy era, like, scroll across of the trainer's sprite. And then it just sort of opens up into the 3D battle environment. And that, to me, it just sent me. Like, the first time I really picked up on it, which happened within the first 3-4 battles that I had in the game, obviously. Like, I really just... It's something about it just tickled me so much.
Ilka gave them a run for their money because the overall chibi style... The game looks fantastic. I mean, I love the little things about this game. The water looks fantastic. The models for the different berries, absolutely fantastic. But when you get into these battles, that's when you really see I mean, I would personally say that the 3D models on trainers, gym leaders, anybody you battle, definitely better than Sword and Shield.
Yeah, I mean, at least as good as, if not better, in every case.
Yeah, they stuck. What it is, I think they stuck to a traditional approach.
Yep,
In a
they didn't try
clean
and
fashion.
do too much.
Yeah, like so when Hop moves, when his mouth, when he's talking and his mouth moves and it doesn't match up to what he's saying at all, there's nothing wrong with that. But the fact that they don't make them talk or make them mouth anything, what we get is like that reaction, that animation.
Yep.
It makes it fluid, and it's old. It's a nice way to combine the old school approach with a new style visual representation.
You really feel the love that Ilka put into the graphics of this game.
I really do not feel one bit, and we can't say this for many titles, Tyler, not to cut you off, but I really don't feel like this game was rushed.
It doesn't feel like it. I know that it was based on real world, things, but it feels polished for sure.
Well, they did a damn good job, dude. I really think Ilka knocked it out of the park with this. I mean,
Definitely.
They definitely need to be signed on for some more content.
I agree. Whatever it takes.
But graphically, man, I mean, I could go on and on. If there's any high points that you wanted to bring up, everything about the game is beautiful to me.
You touched on everything that I sort of have thought of and mentioned, definitely. But one thing that we haven't talked about at all that could have its own whole segment is the music.
The music.
Now, something like, Sterling, we're grown men, but when I first walked into the first Lake Verity, right by your starting town.
Oh, dude.
That song sent me into another place, another time. It hit me in such a way that had me feeling emotional. And I was not expecting it, but it absolutely blew me away.
That has been playing in my head for the past 2 weeks.
Yep, definitely.
And it's so funny because I for the music segment, to break the fourth wall that we do from time to time, I started to, I'm playing through it now, and all these songs are hitting me. It just sounds so good. They have so much instrumentation that they just didn't even need to include.
Mm-hmm.
They just go so far above with the drums and just the effects, and everything is so nicely produced. Like, shout out to the music team on this game.
Definitely.
But whenever my girl started Brilliant Diamond and she got to Verity Lakefront, I said, I hate to be a bother, but can you tell me where you're at in the game right now without looking at the screen? She said, I'm at the lakefront, at the first little lakefront. Mm-hmm. And I jotted that down because I was like, this is everything.
Yep.
And then when I started to go through the game and realize how many spots in the game were this is everything moment, I erased my notes. There's just
it's
no
impossible
point.
To say.
It's impossible to keep track.
Yeah.
Because the music was already incredible and they took it to the next level, which is what we hope from a new, up-to-date rendition of a game. They lived up to it.
What I find so interesting, though, is if you compare this against something like Heart Gold and Soul Silver, remakes of the Gen 2 games, these are remakes of the Gen 4 games, the amount of remixing and new tracking that has been done in this game, it feels like a lot less. It feels like they used so much more of what originally made these tracks great that they didn't have to do an entire remix, new style song. They fine-tuned them, updated them, modernized them, made them sound beautiful on the Switch, but they really didn't change the tracks very much, which I actually like a lot.
I really like that too, but I don't want that to take any shine away from the effort that went into this. They didn't have to compose anything.
That's correct.
But as far as restructuring what was there and throwing some bells and whistles on it, they could not have done a better job, in my opinion.
And I'm not saying they didn't change the songs at all, but they feel so musically similar to the original songs that like it's not as drastic a difference like something Heart Gold, Soul Silver, which still, I mean, the music in that game was absolutely incredible too, no question.
Definitely, but they threw but they threw a lot of flash on it, and I completely understand where you're coming from. Is how true they stayed to the actual musical composition of the game. That I was very happy about. The fact that I'm hearing these tunes fresh but remembering them is a great thing.
Definitely.
The music, man. Another thing, another one of those moments you had, like with Verity Lakefront, I wanted to say, when you walk up to Cynthia at the end of the Elite Four, you are going to just hold off on proceeding and soak that in. Because that is a beautiful moment. I'm serious.
Yeah.
Anyway, the music, 10 out of 10. We're not even rating anything. All of it's a 10 out of 10, but the music is what we absolutely live for. Thank you, Ilka.
Definitely.
Thank you.
Yep.
Now, a big one that we want to get into is the overall gameplay. I mean, that's kind of the core conversation.
Definitely.
We can definitely, if you'd like, tie in the trueness to the original, because I think that's where we can properly speak about that, is in the gameplay, because I
think it's part and parcel. Yeah, I think it is
absolutely.
And we did mention this in our last episode's news segment, but the mechanics of the game, other than some of the changes we've already mentioned, like the EXP distribution and stuff like that, I mean, it's 1 for 1, Sterling. It's one for one. It's just there. It's incredible. It's almost hard to talk about because it's so incredibly similar feeling to the DS games. I mean, they went as far as giving us a separate subscreen for the Poketch. That to me is something that I would have never even thought about, but it makes the game feel just so much more true to the original to have what is the equivalent of that bottom DS screen available to you at all times and interactable at all times.
The Poketch is one of my favorite parts of the game, and I'm so glad that you brought it up.
Yeah.
Because
how could I not?
One of those little mini obsessions I have with this particular generation was and still is having all the Poketch apps. I mean, that just has to be done. And just the mere fact that they took the visual representation of the Poketch and did nothing to it. I'm talking nothing to it.
It's the same pixel for pixel.
I love it, dude. I truly love it. And it's so funny because I spoke with my friend and his wife. And, she was talking about how, neither of them like to have the Poketch on screen. You know how you can hold R and you can get rid of it.
Yeah. Neither do I, by the way.
I totally understand that. But something in me wants to keep it up.
Mm-hmm.
So even if I just have the time on the screen with that little Pikachu sprite that we love, I just love having it on screen. I keep it on screen at all times. Love it, dude. And just to see how 1-in-1, because we're going to be using that term so much, 1-in-1, it is exactly what you see on the bottom screen. When I pulled up the footage to show my girl, that's what I was, another thing I was saying. I was like, you see this Poketch? Like, this was the bottom screen.
Yep.
And it just brought me back to when, like, at all times we were interacting with the Poketch.
Mm-hmm.
Just tap, tap, tap. You know what I'm saying? The note thing was flawless. I mean, that was in itself was basically like a game. I mean, you get a notepad that you can use the stylus to draw on.
Yep.
It's just incredible that this is such an extra feature. It's not even a main gameplay feature.
But it adds so much depth to the game.
And it centralizes everything.
Mm-hmm. Exactly.
And even to the point where some of these apps are completely unnecessary, but they have them there anyway, and I couldn't love it more, you know?
Absolutely.
But the gameplay, you were one that really talked about control early on.
Mm-hmm.
Now, we all love playing with the analog stick.
Mm-hmm.
It feels just as it should. We're navigating a 3D world, but I think the fact that they kept it to where you can walk with the D-pad or hold B, run with the D-pad on a grid. It's impressive how you can just go from full 3D exploration to snapping to a grid. You have your option.
Exactly. I couldn't agree more. And it's almost because of the way the game is designed, you really end up using both. And that is impressive to me.
Definitely. It gets you, there's certain spots in the game where it's ideal to use the D-pad, to snap onto the grid.
Exactly. Certain tricky sort of very angular straight line type mazes, puzzles, strength areas, like
definitely
where you want that precision that the D-pad gives you, whereas the analog stick is nice for more wide open areas, towns, big overworld sections. I don't know if you would agree with that, but I found myself mostly using the analog stick in the more wide open areas, and then the D-pad in more compacted areas where tight movement was kind of, the thing that was needed.
Yeah, the analog stick is definitely what I played through the game with almost exclusively. But I think about parts of the game like Mount Coronet. There's this one single tile path, and at the end of it, there's an item. Something like that you're using the D-pad for.
You have to. You almost have to. It does feel almost a little clunky to sort of navigate these really tight spaces with the analog stick, but I think that's why they implemented the D-pad as they did.
Yeah, so if you come down, for example, like to that path at an angle, you might have a little bit of rough time snapping right, just because of the stick is so isometric. I mean, it's just so sensitive.
Absolutely.
So you want to talk about quality of life? That's the peak of it.
I also found that if I'm running through grass and I want to avoid encounters, I think the D-pad is the way to go, because I think the analog stick, you kind of end up hitting more grass tiles as you traverse, whereas the D-pad, you kind of keep it to one row.
That makes a whole lot of sense to me, man. Definitely.
But, that's so minor. But overall, man, the controls, the mechanics, the battling, we didn't even get into the actual battling, but it's so true to this generation. Like, there's really not a lot of extra. There's no mega evolutions. There's no Dynamax. It's just this sort of pure experience that you would want, like, from one of these early main series Pokemon games. And I think that's awesome.
Pure is a great word for it. I really, the word that stuck out in my mind was definitive. This is the definitive Pokemon experience.
Yep.
Newcomers, old heads, anybody.
Yep. Yeah, for someone who wanted a more simplistic mechanical game, I think this is the game for them, because Sword and Shield, they just have a lot of bells and whistles that I didn't always find myself using. But as far as what's available in Diamond, Brilliant Diamond, Shining Pearl, I find myself using almost every mechanical feature there is.
No question. And the amount of places to revisit and side quests and just content, I mean, in general in the game is just so impressive. I mean, one of the biggest gameplay features I think here is the underground.
Definitely. Man.
One of the things I'm most excited about is getting into the underground. That's going to be a main focus of mine, because like I said, I'm far from done with this game.
Yep.
I'm going to continue to be on this even till next episode. So we'll be talking, potentially touching up on your Elite Four run and our end game experience, getting into it. But it's just absolutely impressive. The fact that you go underground and you have kind of like what we've been seeing in Sword and Shield Let's Go. You have Pokemon walking around, 3D models walking around. it suddenly makes you realize that this is a new experience. It's so true to the original that, you're running around, you go in the grass, you get encounters. But then you go into the underground, and now you actually see what's around you. You have Pokemon chasing you. Man, it's almost like having two games in one. The underground,
it really is. That's a great way to put it.
I mentioned it to my girl. The underground itself could have been a DLC.
Yeah, I agree. And maybe we will see more if they do come out with DLC for this game.
Perhaps we will. I'm begging for DLC. I want any reason for this to have as much longevity as possible. Arceus is going to be sick, but it's not going to be this experience, though. That's the thing about it.
Very different game, yeah.
Yeah. I'm sure it's going to be fantastic, but something like this, it's kind of hard to envision a different type of Pokemon experience hitting us harder than this.
No question. It's going to be a completely different thing. But Sterling, do you have any closing thoughts about Pokemon? We have a list segment that I'm dying to get into.
I think I've said all there is to say. Like I said, this is potentially a Switch favorite. It should be picked up by everybody. If you've never played Pokemon, get into it. If you played Gen 4,
definitely
just know that you're going to be right at home with Brilliant Diamond and Shining Pearl.